Right, so let's get today's analysis started. It being the end of the first week of December, it's NFP today, so it's very unlikely I'll be trading during the NY session. Also, it's a possibility that it'll be my last video of the year. Obviously, be busy around this time of the year as well, winding down on my trading, so I may or may not analyze and create any videos for the rest of the year. So if so, thank you for joining me, and I'll be back in the new year. So here we are on the daily. We have EU on the top, DXY on the bottom. Now, what's the daily chart showing us? Well, yesterday, as you can see, we closed out as a large bullish candle, large bearish candle on DXY. So as I've been discussing, there was the possibility that we're due a further pullback towards a premium of this daily leg. Right, so if we look closely at this recent price action, we did make this high here, which was a lower high compared to this high. However, we didn't go on to make any bearish moves, making lower lows. So technically, I guess we can see this as a higher low. And now we've made this bullish move. It does look like we may continue going higher. And this would be a weak high in that sort of internal, maybe 4-hour structure there. I was saying DXY did look quite bearish. Since we took this buy side liquidity, we made that bearish move going below this low, right, where we failed to go above that high here on EU. So it did signify some sort of weakness. But now some strength seems to be coming back. So we had that lower low, pulled back, and then we've continued bearish from there. So it does look like we may get that further pullback, giving the EU some strength as well. So far today, we've taken previous daily high buy side liquidity already. So you can see price is struggling with that at the moment, right? And it's causing possibly some sort of bearish move there. Same on DXY, we've taken previous daily low. Now we have previous weekly high, buy side liquidity above, and previous weekly low, sell side liquidity below. So we'll see if price needs to use that for any sort of sponsorship, right, to form some sort of pullback. But we'll see what the internal legs look like on the lower time frames. Let's move on. Let's go down to the 4-hour. So on the 4-hour, here's that internal high here, right? You can see there where we made that high. It does turn out this may be just a complex pullback here rather than a shift in structure to continue going lower in price. So we mitigated this POI zone here, swept some sell side liquidity, and eventually we've made our way up, looking as if we're going to make a new higher high at the moment. Right, we haven't respected this order block. We have taken the buy side liquidity above it, but that's failing to send us bearish at the moment. We've taken a previous daily high. We'll see what that does, but the previous weekly high is actually really close by. So if we go in and sweep that, that may give us a more significant pullback, but it also gives us a higher high as well. So in terms of bias for today, especially this morning, because that'll be the only time I'm likely to trade, I see our bullish potential, right, especially on a higher time frame. It does look like we're possibly going on to make new highs. However, my bias for this morning is leaning towards bearish, right? Because of course we're making bullish moves here. We're going to still be up in the premium of these legs. We've just taken buy side liquidity, preferably even if we take that previous weekly high, that would be great. So we're going to be in a premium. I'd probably be leaning towards for a bearish pullback. So I think that would be great. And on DXY, it looks very bearish, right? It looks like we're going to take out the same liquidity areas and make lower lows possibly. We've taken it already. This is just a 4-hour chart being static. So if we take these sell side liquidity points, I would be looking to trade the counter trend sort of reversal from there short term, right, from that liquidity. So that's my view on the 4-hour. Let's go down to the 1-hour, see exactly how that looks. So here's that EU 1-hour price action, as I mentioned, right? Sweep of sell side liquidity below these lows, high, 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 low, eventually to another high, high. Now you can see where we've got about 25 minutes left of this 1-hour candle. So far, it's a high test. Taking that previous daily high, which we know is powerful, previous weekly high is going to hold even more buy side liquidity. We've left behind imbalance, say down here, which is only partially mitigated. So we could come down further to mitigate that towards this discount. We left behind this 1-hour POI, didn't quite mitigate it fully. So maybe at a later date. I'll remove this for now just so it's not confusing. We have the same thing here as well on DXY. That may come into play at a later date. Right, so clearly we're going to be in a premium. You can see these bullish legs here. We're right at the top of the price action and we've taken buy side liquidity. Right, we've got this mini structure here at the top. So if we start to break down that structure there, definitely we will look like we're good for some sort of pullback. Again on DXY2, we have the same imbalance, right, with even an order block there. We have swept that previous daily low so far and some previous lows here where we initially had divergence from this high to this high. Alright, so sell side liquidity from DXY, buy side liquidity from EU. Would I prefer the previous weekly high? Yes. So if we do come up and take that previous weekly high, or we create structures around here before breaking down, I think that'll look good for my sort of counter this new trend to look for shorts. So I think let's go down to the M15. Let's look what a trade would look like for today. So M15 price action. Right, we can see how bullish we've been over the last few days and yesterday. We made this range here, right, through Asia, now into the London Open, price powered up, come and took out these highs for buy side liquidity. So we've left behind quite a large M15 order block here. Right, we swept sell side liquidity, broke above these internal highs here, so break of structure. Okay, so it, of course, on the M15, right, in terms of strategy, yeah, great, sweep of liquidity, break of highs, and we've made momentum, left behind an order block with imbalance. I'm not trading this. I'm not interested in the slightest in trading this. Price could come down to it, mitigate it, respect it, and then come for the previous weekly high for more buy side liquidity. But honestly, am I going to trade against the premium and all this buy side liquidity from the previous daily high? Probably not. Right, so that's not something I'll look for. And if we take the previous weekly high, definitely not. I'm still going to be looking for shorts. Right, this area may provide some sort of support and may get in the way. Okay, so there's some scenarios we can look at. Again, like I said, I'd prefer the previous weekly high to get taken out. So if price was to come up, take that out, and then, you know, we create structure, whatever we did, break down that structure, pull back to it, order block, imbalance, okay, after taking that buy side liquidity to then head towards a discount. Right, this is exactly something that will look cool to me to go short from. Stop loss just above the high, break of structure around here. So it looks something like that. I'd have no problem with that. We'd have good sponsorship of buy side liquidity, of course. We may do the same thing around here, around the previous daily high as well. Or if we get the momentum from here or somewhere from up there, we may break down and break this leg here, right? And then pull back to an order block or something left behind to go short from. So we may see, let's say, this M15 order block, for example, something like that. Break of structure below this low here. If price was to power up that much from these highs, not sure if it's showing that sort of momentum at the moment, maybe from there. But besides the point, I would want that momentum to come into the market from this buy side liquidity from the highs. Maybe we pull back correctively, leaving in some inducement there. That would look great. So as I said, I'll be looking for reversals. I'm not interested in trading against these current buy side liquidity POIs just because it wouldn't be smart for me, regardless of what the trend seems like and what the lower time frame M15 order block looks like. So let's move on to GJ. So GJ seems to be another one that's possibly continuing bullish, right? After our bearish leg here in a discount, mitigated the high time frame POI there, filling that imbalance, and price is looking like it may pull back to more of a premium POI, say up here, and there's one here as well. So yesterday we obviously closed out as a bullish doji, so it looks like we've taken buy side liquidity and sell side liquidity, or mitigated the POI and just closed out as a bullish candle there. We may be seeing some resistance around this zone, as I also mentioned yesterday, because it is a daily order block, but it's in a discount. There might be some lower time frame order blocks here as well as resistance, but today so far we are quite bullish. We are heading towards that previous daily high at the moment. So let's go down to the 4 hour and let's see what that's looking like. So as I've been mentioning, the 4 hour does look like it made a shift right after we mitigated this area here, sweeping these lows, made a high above this high and this high here. So we had a small pullback here, right, just very shallow, quite corrective. Price obviously swept some liquidity there, or maybe hit POI, and then made its bullish move again up into this order block. So far it's respected, but that has only really had a small effect here, right? A short pullback again, a little shallow one. Maybe there's something here on the lower time frame 1 hour as well. Okay, and we look like we're gunning for these highs here, because If you look at it, this is a high low, high high, high low, making this high weak, of course, so you can target that. So this 4-hour order block doesn't look like it's going to last. So the bias I'm getting from GJ is of course a trend, a bullish trend going on here. Same as EU though. If we start taking buy side liquidity, obviously I'm not going to want to trade after that long, right? Unless we come back and mitigate these POIs and structure shifts to go long again. So we may be able to look for some sort of counter trend shorts if we take these highs out, or we can look into this price action on a lower time frame, see if there is a way to go long before we take out the buy side liquidity. So in saying that, let's go down to the 1 hour. So on the 1 hour here, we can see the legs we are creating. We get this sort of corrective price action here. We take it out, made a new high, pull back fairly corrective, just sort of down to this imbalance zone, I guess. We've taken some sell side liquidity from below here, and price just really powered up bullishly this morning. Now there is potential for price to pull back further, maybe if it comes back on those days. We did leave behind imbalances down here, so there is that future scenario where price may come down to challenge some of these areas here, but I'm not concerned with those right now. They are quite far away, so I'll also remove that. So we have our bullish leg here, our shallow pullback, right, to a discount. Price so far is rejecting that discount. You can see we've switched internally again. This will be a strong M15 leg as well. Weak high above here. Price has got a lot of bullish momentum at the moment. So really and truly, when this closes out as well, this would obviously be our nearby 1 hour order block POI. Is somewhere I'd be interested to look for longs from if we pull back down to it, of course. At the moment, we are off like a rocket ship, so I probably can't see there's any way to get in the longs until we pull back to a zone, say like this, right? But it does look good structure wise for us to continue up to this week high. Let's go down to the M15, let's see what that looks like. So yeah, the M15 looks as expected, of course. We made this little structure here into the London Open. I don't know if we swept that Asia low. We may have 3 sort of equal lows here, right, which price may target in the future. So we have this 1 hour order block here and 15 order block with imbalance, all of this bullish price action, right? We've broken above this high here, but also this high here as well. So clear bullish breaking structure. So what I would wait for, I wouldn't want to just trade in this zone here if price pulls back to it, because of these lows here especially. I want to see this hold. Price may come down and wick below those, ultimately taking that sell side liquidity, which would be a good sponsor. What I would want to see is price come down into this zone here, respect it, or even if it takes the sell side liquidity, doesn't really matter to me, but let's say it takes the sell side liquidity, then we get that break-in structure above this low here, then I would be more willing to get involved on that order block with imbalance, where that momentum comes into the market, to trade back up, looking for any weak highs. Right, so something like this, break of structure above this high here, potentially possible corrective pullback to that order block to go long, stop loss just below the lows, back towards those highs. So I'd be looking for something like this. If it respects this order block, then great, because that just continues the trend, and I don't mind that either. But I do like some sell side liquidity sponsorship as well. So if we come below these lows, I think these equal lows here are a bit of a target, so it wouldn't surprise me if price comes and sweeps them. So that's what I'd be looking for in the future. Nothing immediate for me. We may pull back to this zone. We'll see what happens. GJ is affected by US dollar news as well. So NFP is a write-off for all of these. I'm not sure it's going to happen today. So let's go over and look at GU, as this may be my last episode of the year. Now, as we know, GU is not going to be that dissimilar to EU, right? Follows a similar pattern. It's obviously correlated to the US dollar, but it's not the same correlation as EU in terms of the US dollar index, because the weight is not the same with the pound. So on GU, on the daily, it's sort of similar thing. We have our daily bearish leg. We're in that discount sort of area coming up to that equilibrium. We have a draw on price above with this massive imbalance. Price may be drawn into this premium here to fill this area. So that's great in terms of that trend that's coming into play here. Right, we broke above these internal highs, pulled back, filled this imbalance here, continued going bullish from there. We closed above our previous weekly high. So previous weekly high buy side liquidity didn't actually pull us back down at this moment. And just like EU, we've taken our previous daily high for buy side liquidity, and price has pulled back somewhat from there. So we have this draw on price above. So yes, I do believe ultimately price may continue going higher, but we've taken fresh buy side liquidity today, taken out previous highs, right, which is previous weekly high as well. So it may be due some sort of move back. We'll see what the lower time frame structure is like. And of course, DXY may want to pull back somewhat from its previous daily lows, and sell side liquidity may have an effect here. So let's go down to the 4 hour, see what that looks like for us. So onto the 4 hour price action. Just to note, I'm not going to be comparing it as much to this DXY chart because, as I mentioned, the correlation isn't as strong. I just have it up here so we can note the liquidity points and how DXY is moving. So if we look at this 4 hour chart, we can see these breaks above the highs here, right? The new sort of bullish pullback trend is evident, right? 4 hour breaks of structure are a good sign of that. This recent price action though, since the start of December, has been quite corrective. We have gone on to make higher highs nonetheless, but it is quite corrective. So this is going to look like a strong trend line on the lower time frames, like the 1 hour. We didn't quite have a full pullback to this, say, 4 hour POI. So this could be some future support. We'll see, especially if we take advantage of this trend line and come down to fill these imbalances here. Though concentrating on the day trade setup, let's look at this. We've come above previous weekly high, taking the buy side liquidity there yesterday. Also to the end of yesterday, we swept this previous high here, which was a 4 hour order block POI that we initially rejected. Today we've come up again, taking more buy side liquidity above that previous daily high. And as I mentioned, we have a nice trend line looking piece of price action here. So if I zoom in more, of course, we have our POIs up into this area here. We have that daily draw on price, but in the short term, just like EU, I'm leading towards some sort of bearish pullback bias, right? So let's look down onto the hourly and see what that looks like for us. Yeah, so as I mentioned, that price action does look very corrective in terms of, high highs, high lows, leaving a lot of a trend line effect going on there. So if we do start to break down, it's quite possible we could pull back quite a bit, just taking out all of these lows here, which is nice as well. We're rejecting that previous daily high. We've got less than 20 minutes to close this candle out, which would be a nice high test closure above these highs here, above Asia, previous daily high buy side liquidity as well. So again, I do see a possible bearish counter trend pullback here on GU. Right, we'll have this imbalance and POI area here, may prove as support, but price may break down further, as I mentioned, to come through this sell side liquidity maybe, while DXY, as you can see, is having a bullish reaction from its previous daily lows, which may want to come up and mitigate, say, this 1 hour POI here. So that could lead to further pullbacks on GU. Alright, so that's where my mind is at the moment. We may or may not have time to execute those in London, and of course the NY session has these big news announcements that price may wait for, and those breakdowns may happen then, or it may go on to make higher highs. So let's go down to the M15. Let's see what that looks like for some trades. Alright, so I'm going to close DXY at this time, just because the M15 won't be that correlated, as I'm saying, but we know it's taken sell side liquidity, and we know it may be moving more bullish since then, which is causing GU to be a bit more bearish. So as with EU, there's the potential that we break down and make that lower low below these lows, pull back, and then we can look to go lower. Or what would be nice to get in at the top, let's say we create a low sort of around here, I don't know, a little mini structure, come back up, maybe respect this high here and not sweep it, or if we swept it, that would be great too, even more buy side liquidity sponsorship. Then we break down to our internal low here, and we can have that pullback to an M15 order block with imbalance and momentum to then target these lows. So we could easily do something like this, sweep the highs, break down, order block left behind, breaker structure wherever this internal low may be, possible corrective pullback leaving inducement, we go short, stop loss just above the highs, aiming towards those lows, and that would be nice, something like this. So we'll see how that goes. That's everything for today. If I don't see you again, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the new year.